Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, John Clark, and Scott Cosenza. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. It may seem that the rematch of Joe Biden and Donald Trump is all that needs to be discussed in this important election year. But that would be a fallacy. Most Americans, more than ever, identify as independent, and they have actually outnumbered supporters of both political parties since 1991. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who left the party of his iconic family and declared as an independent earlier this year, recently won a spot on the California ballot. He also secured access in Michigan and Utah and is expected to do so in 7 other states relatively soon. And both Trump and RFK will speak at the Libertarian Party convention next week. This election right now can go in any direction because of the independent factor, and we all need to get on board with at least thinking that's a possibility. Do you think, John? Well, it's a long shot for any independent. We know that, but Kennedy is surging, and in the past, a few dark horse candidates have managed to tip a presidential election. Do you see that happening with RFK this time around?
I think he's a huge wild card. Whether he could win outright would be, it's kind of a catch-22. People want to back a winner. So if enough people believe that he could really be the change they could believe in and thought he could win, you never know. And some other things could happen between now and November, including the health of the sitting president and other things. And his running mate selection seems to suggest that he's aware of the characterization of him as a right winger. So he's trying to pull from the left, and he seems to be doing so with that selection. So I think it's anybody's guess. But I'm also intrigued by more and more polls showing that large numbers of Americans are moving to that unaffiliated category. And Kelly Ballard did a great piece on this at Liberty Nation on May 11th. I think it was called Independent Voters in the 2024 election. And one of the things she pointed out was that in New Hampshire's primary, 70% of voters identified as unaffiliated, and I beg your pardon, 40% identified as unaffiliated, and 70% of them voted for Nikki Haley. And that, to me, is an interesting picture of how those independent voters might go if they had to choose between two candidates, which, I'm happy to see more. I'm actually working here in Vermont to get Kennedy on the ballot. I think he's a spoiler for the Democrats. We have a uniparty system here. So this is exciting for me that we were moving to a one-party system to 3 candidates. And the whole premise here is that people are becoming independent because they want another option. But I think each side is concerned that a vote for Kennedy will undermine that they rather have not have their opponent win. So Democrats are concerned that a vote for Kennedy might put Trump in the White House, and conversely, Republicans are worried that if they are disenamored by Donald Trump's conviction of a silliness, that they still could put Biden back in. So this makes this, to me, a particularly interesting and difficult to call situation. There are a lot of things.
I'll just cut in here to add that Mr. Clark's campaign activities are his own affair and not something that he does with the imprimatur of Liberty Nation News or its parent corporation, One Generation Away, which is a 501c3 nonprofit and does not engage in political campaigns or electioneering.
Well, and I'll clarify, sorry, because I'm not endorsing him. I'm just helping getting him on the ballot. It doesn't even mean I'll vote for him. I haven't endorsed him for office at all. I'm just...
Yeah, I agree with allowing the American process to play out.
Yes, I've made it very clear that's what I'm doing. I've got a lot of blowback.
We're all, and even if you weren't, John, we're all allowed our individual activities and opinions. So I wouldn't put a wet damper on it.
No, I just
go back to now. Go back.
We have our Mr. Counselor on the panel, so we need that little every now and again bump so that people understand what we're doing here.
Yeah, we follow the rules.
Yeah, we do. Andrew. You know,
Yeah, so it's not to add to John's point that if you look at so for example, if you look at the Real Clear Politics average of a five-way race, Biden, Trump, Cornel West, Jill Stein, and Robert F. Kennedy, Trump still pulls out ahead slightly against Joe Biden. So these votes are definitely these other candidates are definitely hurting Biden more than Trump. So those polls are really fascinating to watch heading into November.
well, and let's talk about the Hispanic vote.
Hey, before we do that, can I cut in on something else, which is
Sure,
I'll
Scott.
just take it as a yes.
The
Donald
C1
Trump-
show today.
Donald Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are both going to appear at the Libertarian Party convention next week from our record time at the end of June. And, it's just surprising that one party would host candidates from another party. It's kind of a unique position. And also that they obviously see the value there, especially Trump. And I'm told from an inside source, it was his outreach that got the ball rolling in that regard. And if you look at the numbers in those swing states, you will see there are significant percentages that went libertarian in the last presidential race and the one before. And we're talking about a race where, a few thousand votes might make the difference in the next presidential election. And if Donald Trump can get those votes from somebody else who may cast a vote for a libertarian instead of him, I think it's a very interesting play on his part and for RFK to agree to come as well.
So let's talk about the Hispanic vote. They're not all on the same page when it comes down to the two-party system. And I know Dave and I have been talking about this a little bit offline. And I want your take on this.
I think that the media likes to talk about Hispanic voters as though there's some sort of predictable block of voters who vote a specific way, and that's simply not true. I mean, let's take Cuban voters around Miami. They're more likely to vote Republican. Puerto Rican voters in New York City are more likely to vote Democratic. The media likes to conflate Hispanics with Latinos, and that's simply inaccurate. Hispanics are people who speak Spanish, and they come from all manner of countries and cultures. Latinos are generally associated with South Central America, Latin America. And so Latinos are Hispanic, but not all Hispanics are Latinos. But if you look at a demographic, there are statistics that, you can use to be descriptive. For example, according to Pew Research data in 2024, there are 36.2 million Hispanic eligible voters. And that's up from 2020 by 3.9 million, a 12% change. And you can count on every year another 1.4 Hispanics become eligible voters. But for the Trump campaign, I think there's a modestly good news. Back in January, a USA Today and Suffolk University survey showed that the former President Trump, with a 39-34 advantage in support among Latino voters. This is something that the Democrats should be concerned about. And also, despite the numbers, turnout rates for Hispanic voters have lagged behind other groups.
Well, every few decades or so, that third party threat makes political pundits a tad delirious. Will this election be one of those, or are we setting up for an also ran lesson in two-party politics like we were back in the 90s with Clinton and Bush?
And
well, it's the same old message that, this is the most important election of your lifetime, and you have to vote for either Republican or Democrat, and you can't waste your vote on a third party candidate. It's the same message all the time. And then 2028, it's gonna be the exact same thing. This is the most important election of your lifetime. Democracy's under threat, so you have to cast a vote for one of the two party candidates.
Are they still trying to shove Latinx down our throats as a term to refer to these folks? I haven't seen it.
No. Well, actually, sorry. I think it was Joe Biden. He accidentally said it a few weeks ago, but I think it was Vice when they were the ones who introduced that term, and then a year or two later, he said, "We got to stop saying Latinx." Yeah.
Well,
so, Sarah, I think that's something that we might look forward to, and that is that. Indeed, a historical precedent might be raised again by the Biden administration, and they resurrect the Know Nothing Party, which would be very apt.
Okay, well, gosh, that adage, if you hear hoofbeats, don't look for zebras. Does that apply here? Is it just going to be Trump and Biden to the finish line?
There's during World War II, where Roosevelt came up with a thing that was totally different than it's called. He called it, the in World War II, he had the War Production Board. Now, why am I quoting this amazing statement from Joe Biden in 2020? It's because of the fact that he may need another mainstream candidate like RFK to get some of the coverage off of him, so especially heading into November, because he gaffes nonstop and they're getting worse. 4 more years. Pause. And that was all over social media. So perhaps if there's another person that's getting, a lot of attention, but may or may not impact his electoral chance or not, he would want that, especially from a debate perspective. I mean, I mentioned this on the last C5 we had. There's RFK on the stage. That means that's a good thing for Biden, because that means he's going to talk less and less, and not call, let's say Martha McCallum call her, I don't know, Roosevelt or something.
Maybe some more family members who were heroes and also victims of cannibalism during one of the Great
True,
Wars.
true.
Uncle Bosie. How could I not
Uncle
mention
Bosie's on the menu.
Well, I think we can all
Lord.
take a certain amount of comfort in the fact that regardless of what President Biden does, he works for Kamala Harris.
Yeah, she's the smartest. She's the smartest. She's smarter than him.
The F-bomb dropping VP.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
that's all right. I don't disagree with that part of it. But so, hey, if you want to deep dive into this issue, go to libertynation.com and read Kelly Ballard's article titled Independent Voters in the 2024 Election. Thanks, panel. And thanks for tuning in. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for Free Thinking, Free Speech, LibertyNation.com.